For today, Lydia and I are going to give you a bird's eye view of what this class is going to cover, why we're covering it, and what you can expect in terms of homework, discussions, and participation. We really hope you remain curious as you watch the lectures, do your homework, and participate in the discussions. We invite your inquisitiveness and encourage you to share your thoughts, feelings, and experiences. First, we want to talk to you about why we think the topic of this course is so important and why we're presenting a course specifically geared towards women in the military. Each of you may have some ideas as to why you decided to take a course geared specifically towards women. So remember back to your own personal reasons. Take a moment now and bring your goals to mind. And if you can, jot them down on a piece of paper, on your phone. Just note it down somewhere. At the end of this class, we invite you to post some or all of your goals on Teatros to share with your classmates and with us. We also want you to keep this paper with you and periodically look back to see how this course is answering some of the goals you've got for yourself. So, let's talk about sex and gender. Females and males are the same, females and males are different. On which side do you find yourself falling on? What we would venture to say is that both are actually true, depending on what you're looking at. Now, I want to be clear, we're not saying that women can't do the same things that men can do, nor is either sex superior or inferior to the other. Of course not. However, there are significant physiological and psychological differences between men and women that, combined with differences presented by the environment and culture, create different responses and experiences when exposed to stress and trauma. So one way that both are the same is the way that strategies to manage stress and increase resilience work well with both men and women. However, there are differences as to what men and women tend to perceive as stressful, how stress is then experienced, and how men and women behave in stressful situations. Your neuroanatomy, or your nervous system, is different from that of the opposite sex. From certain neurochemicals that are produced in your brain to neuroanatomical structures, your brain is just structured differently than men, which then impacts how you see the world and subsequently experience it. I want to focus just a little bit more on the brain, because that underlies all the behavior that you express. You're born with a brain from which you experience and interpret the world around you. These experiences impact brain development, leave memories, and influence how you react to your environment. Research has shown that stressful experiences, especially those that are emotion-laden, affect brain structures and function. This is especially true when you experience traumatic events ranging from accidents to losing loved ones, war, all the way to emotional, physical, and sexual trauma. While traumatic events change your brain, there's also a lot you can do with healing and growing parts of the brain impacted by stress and trauma. This is a big focus of our course here. Throughout our time together, we'll be teaching you ways to cope with stress, from everyday stress all the way to bigger stressors that ping on you in larger and smaller ways. Let's talk about stressors. Stress builds and builds and builds and builds, and we learn to manage it, right? Until it becomes too much. As women, the stressors that you experience daily and those that are chronic tend to be different. Of course, a lot of this is based on the environment, especially when you're placed within contexts that are male-dominated and/or where you don't feel as connected with people who you feel understand you. For women in the military, active or veteran, reports have shown that there exists higher levels of stress due to everything from being in the minority among men, sexual harassment and assault from peers and superiors, and persistent feelings of just having to prove yourself as equal to or better than the males around you. The stressors from home are also quite significant, as most military women live with having had to leave their young children behind and a host of other experiences that are unique to women's lives in the present day. As you think about all these different elements, you can imagine the stress piling up like a layer cake that eventually can topple over when it gets too high. As women, there are many stressors that are unique to your experience, apart from those that men experience. This is uniquely true for a lot of women in the military. The stressors and triggers are wide-ranging, from innocent ribbing by other soldiers to sexual assault. From being the only female in a unit to facing a room full of men as you walk into chow, to subtle or not so subtle remarks aimed to cut you down due to your gender. There's no question that women are an important part of the military and that women gain a lot from serving. However, being a woman in the military carries with it, for many, a persistent environmental stress. So here's Lydia to talk about her experience.
So I'd known I wanted to join the military since I was 9 years old, and that desire intensified throughout high school and during my first year in college because I was incredibly lazy. If I didn't feel like showing up for work, I wouldn't go. If I didn't want to write a paper, I just wouldn't. I realized I needed a serious dose of reality and discipline, and I figured the Marine Corps was a place that could kick some discipline into me. I thought, if I can succeed in this, it will tell me something about my capabilities and give me something to be really proud of. So when I was 19 years old, I enlisted in the Marine Corps and headed off to boot camp at Parris Island, South Carolina. And almost immediately, I began viewing the fact that I was a woman as a liability. During my first week in MOS school, I was sexually assaulted by my squad leader. And at that point, I really started rejecting who I was as a feminine being and started to ape male behavior in a bid for acceptance, safety, and respect. During the next few years, I picked up a lot of traits that were super helpful to me as a Marine, but were devastating to me in my personal life. I lacked empathy for myself and others. I was in constant conflict with the people who were close to me. And when I imagined a future, I saw myself married and divorced. I couldn't imagine being tolerant enough to stay in an unhappy situation. And in my mind, relationships were so much more closely associated with pain than they were with happiness or wellness. So I grew very frustrated with who I had become, but I wasn't willing to let those negative traits go because I saw a lot of value in them. Anger protected me. Decisiveness could save my life. Controlling other people meant that the job would get done, the mission would get completed. So at the time I completed my first enlistment, I had a really small toolbox with which to handle life. And I do believe that there's a time and a place for many of the things I learned in the Marine Corps. I do not, reject that experience wholesale. But who I was as a young Marine is no longer my primary mode of being. I've added significantly to my toolbox over time and really dedicated myself to growth. And in the process, I've eliminated angst, built healthy relationships, and found a peace and resilience I didn't think was possible for someone like me. I'm here to tell you that change is possible. People do it all the time. So maybe you're just starting your journey to post-traumatic growth, and you realize there's an opportunity for you to add some tools to your toolbox. That's awesome. Maybe you're coming to this course from a really healthy place, and you're just looking for tools that you can use to build on the progress you've already made, or maybe to help someone else out. And that's awesome too. Together, during the next 8 weeks, we're going to pick up some new tools. We'll learn how to use them to create wellness, to view the past through a new lens, and to start rewriting the story of your future.
We've outlined the many goals that this course aims to give you. And of all these, we think that this is the most important. This course aims to empower you with knowledge and wisdom about your experience through the formation of your own narrative. Learning your narrative will contribute to renewed growth and healing in your brain, a change in your behavior in response to stressful situations, both past and present. Ultimately, our hope is that your new knowledge and skills will lead to a clearer and more satisfying life experience. In order for our course to be truly successful for each of you, we need your participation. Each class will have lectures, discussions, posts, and homework that require you to be an active student rather than a passive observer. Take notes, respond, post about what feels relevant, engage with your classmate. We want to get your hands dirty, so to speak, in your learning. In short, keep the conversation going and start some of your own. We invite and encourage you to just do it. This is a forum for you to discuss what you're learning, your experiences as women in and out of the military, and anything else that's connected to this course for you. Here are the ground rules. You'll be engaging with your classmates on a confidential platform. We request that what's discussed on the platform stays on the platform. What this means is that we're asking each of you to maintain confidentiality about what you'll be speaking with each other about. Sometimes the conversations may drift to areas that are very personal. Please respect each other's privacy and confidentiality. We also ask that you maintain an atmosphere of respect and open-mindedness in this course. While we invite open dialogue and discourse, please refrain from offensive tones and language. After today's class, you'll find your homework in your pod. It will be to practice a relaxation exercise that Lydia and I will lead you on right now.